He was someone who was involved in the governmental affairs of his city, because the gates of the city, as people were coming and going, as I've stated a moment ago, as traveling goods would be coming through, and salesmen, as it were, would come through with their wares. Your merchants and your businessmen would want to be right at the gate so that they'd have first crack at the new merchandise that was coming through. And that kind of gave them an edge on the competition. So they would be there wanting to see what various suppliers and various manufacturers, as it were, of goods were bringing in that might be new and might appeal to the folks that they served and sold to. And also, while these businessmen then would be there, whenever there was a lull in traffic and there weren't a whole lot of folks coming through, then these men then would debate, and they would go about dealing with the governmental affairs of the city. And so Lot was not merely a casual observer in the city of Sodom. And this is one of the common mistakes. People try to act like, oh, poor Lot, he was just the victim. Bless his heart, he was just trying to live a good, quiet life. No, he wasn't. This man very well knew what this city was all about. He fully understood what went on in Sodom. He was very much involved in the business and in the government of that city, as is implied by the fact that as the angels came in, there was Lot at the gate. Clearly, this man was very involved with the city. He fully understood how things worked in that city. And I want to help you to understand today that Lot then goes to these men. It's very close to darkness. And he says, please come into my house. Let me host you. Let me allow you to stay in the comfort and safety of my home. And these angels who appeared to him as mere men, he had no idea they were of heavenly origins. These angels said, oh no, we'll just do what we always do. We'll just camp out here in the streets. And the angels went on, Lot went on to explain to them, oh, no, you really don't want to do that. Please, by all means, come into my home. And the scriptures suggest to us that the angels were rather resistant at first, yet the Bible tells us that Lot pressed upon them greatly, meaning that he really made an issue of it. He really pushed the issue. He was very concerned for their safety and well-being, so he really put a lot of effort into convincing them to come into his home where they could be safe and warm for the night. And he brought them into his home. He treated them with every hospitality. He fed them. He allowed them to get cleaned up and treated them very well. And the Word of God tells us that, Lot must have very much enjoyed living in Sodom. He was very much a part of all that went on there. The one thing that set Lot aside, however, from all the others among whom he lived was his concern for the welfare of strangers. Lot virtually begged these men to come into his house and stay with him and his family, as the streets were not a safe place for strangers to make their beds. Many travelers were accustomed to traveling a number of miles in any given day to peddle their wares, and it was not at all uncommon for many a traveler to find rest just inside the city gates, alongside their camel or their beast of burden, until the morning, when the gates would again be opened and they could then resume their journey. In verse 4, we find that these two men must have been very attractive. They must have had some beautiful physical attributes. These angelic men finally agree to come in and to reside with Lot for the evening. And then we find that the people from the city gather at Lot's door to inquire about these newcomers. Now this particular verse, verse 4, but before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them unto us, that we may know them. Now, verse 4 holds some very important information, and yet this is one particular verse that is so commonly misrepresented in the church world today. Listen carefully now. The truth is, those who sought to engage the angels in their nightly ritualistic orgy were both male and female. Listen, the same exact word, the same identical word that is translated men, quote unquote men, twice in verse 4, is the same identical word at the end of the same verse that is then translated people. Do you hear me now? You need to understand this. The same exact word in the Hebrew that is translated twice as men, but before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people. So in reality, the word that is 3 times used in the same verse is the word people, meaning male and female. There was no distinction in gender. And yet, to hear this story told by many churches who try to literalize the King James translation in this instance, to hear them tell the story, there were a bunch of perverted faggots who were hanging out at the door calling for these men to come out. No, the reality is, before they lay down, the people of the city, even the people of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. So the reality is that the conduct of these people in the evening time was in reality absolutely no different. Now listen carefully to me, my friend. Was no different than the conduct of the children of Israel in the wilderness when Moses was atop Mount Sinai, spending time in the presence of God, and the people of Israel began to murmur and say, oh, he must have died. He's been up there all this time now, and he must have died. And so Aaron and the others created a golden calf, which was a god of Egypt that they had seen worshipped in Egypt, a god that they had seen portrayed and represented by idols in Egypt. They said, let's create this idol and we'll carry it back into Egypt with us. And maybe if they see us carrying one of their gods before us, they'll receive us back without too much retribution. And the word of the Lord tells us in the book of Exodus that after they had created the golden calf, that the people of Israel rose up to play. And when you look into the original language, the original text, you find that what they did was the people engaged in a ritualistic sexual orgy. This was common in ancient times. Many religions in ancient times, all of them were born out of Babylon, and the religions of Babylon were highly phallic in nature. They were very sexual. Sexual conduct was part of religious practice at that time.